Let's find the thought. We have established in the previous sections that a key part of the CBT approach is to manage, change, trap, stop, and destroy the negative thoughts that you have about yourself, the world, and your future. Okay, well, the first thing to do is to recognize that you're having negative thoughts. You may have been having them for so long that they may not seem so negative anymore, just simply not very nice, but nevertheless normal. And that is the core of the problem. Before you can do anything about them, you have to recognize that you're having them. So this is the first of the active self-help strategies on this CD. Recognize your thoughts for what they are. Actually, this is one of the most challenging aspects of tackling depression because it requires you to move ever so slightly from your uncomfortable comfort zone and see your thoughts as they really are. I cannot tell you the number of times in my consulting room I've heard clients say things like, "I'm a failure, I'm useless, I'm worthless," without even turning a hair. These negative statements are so self-destructive and yet so commonly used that they no longer evoke any response at all. That's just wrong and incorrect, both because it's self-destructive but also because it's factually wrong. Imagine someone who is successful at work, has a nice family and friends, a family who care for them, and yet they feel a failure and worthless. This at the very least suggests that they're being more negative than their circumstances warrant. The whole point is not to be positive, but to be accurate, simply unbiased, honest truth. It's important to recognize that just because you feel something does not make it true. In fact, much of what you feel is actually inaccurate and pointless. Your emotions are not a good guide to reality. Now, of course, emotions are useful. Indeed, without emotions, we would feel like life was dead. We would be robotic and colorless in our approach to life. But by the same token, too much emotion, or emotion that's out of control and not linked to actual experience of your life, is worse than useless. It can be downright self-destructive. So what needs to happen is that the validity of your emotions is checked for accuracy in the first instance. And if your emotions are found to be out of sync with the world in which you live, then you need to change them. There's no question that emotions that are wrong can take you anywhere, and many of the places they take you, you would not wish to go. Now then, imagine that your mind is like a screen at a cinema. There's a constant film of adverts, bits of memory, snippets of conversation, faintly remembered fantasy, outright fantasy, bits of sex, random thought, and all sorts of other junk. These, believe it or not, are the contents of your consciousness. Your mind cannot easily be still. It constantly throws up all sorts of stuff to play on the screen of your consciousness. When you see an advertisement, it may trigger a bit of consciousness to put something on the screen. Alternatively, a feeling you have may trigger a thought, or a thought may trigger a feeling. Almost anything you like can be responsible for things being placed on this inner screen of your consciousness. A lot of the stuff that flows across the screen of your mind goes barely recognized, and a lot of it unrecognized. Mostly, you're focused on the outside world, driving your car, cooking and eating and having conversations, basically living in the world. You may have noticed, however, that as your mood gets lower, you can spend more time looking at the inner screen and less time engaging in the external reality of the world. And there's a dangerous link between what you feel and what your brain chooses to place on your screen. You see, your brain seems to assume that if you're feeling something, it's because you want to feel that emotion, and so it gives you more of the same content on your inner screen. So if you're feeling criticized, your brain will give you lots of fantasy about being criticized. Have you ever experienced that? A good proportion of what passes along the screen is fantasy. Your brain creates fear and failure much more often than the world delivers it to your door. So, let's keep this notebook and start to figure out where you are. What negative thoughts do you recognize? What negative statements do you use to describe yourself and others? These are all bits of information that are incredibly important. You can't grow out of depression without knowing what the components of depression are. So this exercise is designed to leave you with a list of words, statements, or thoughts that reflect the thoughts and words of your inner experience, what your brain gives to you. If you've ever wondered why you feel a particular mood, then this is your answer. Pay attention to what passes through the screen, across the screen. That's the answer. You may not be very aware of the thoughts, but if they are negative, and they are, then you can bet that your mood will respond. and you'll be left in the dark as to why you feel as you do. Take up to a week to complete this exercise. The more thorough you are, the more information you'll gather, and the better off you'll be. There's also a hidden value in this task that I'll share with you now. Simply by doing this, you're starting to change the focus of your attention. Instead of simply accepting whatever your brain throws onto the screen of your consciousness, you're now starting to examine it and to bring what was previously unconscious, or not attended to at least, into conscious awareness. This is a requisite for making change happen. Let's face it, you have to be aware of something before you can change it in any meaningful way. Really put some effort into this, and it will reward you 100-fold with valuable information that can change your life.